There's quite a lot going on in the NBA as the season prepares to kick off. I can't believe we're already here. What is it, the 19th, 16th?
Yeah.
The NBA season is officially upon us. We had some games the other night, some preseason-esque games that actually had some surprising results. I don't know if you were watching at all, but I was keeping up to date on. Actually, I got this new app, and this is not paid for or anything like that. It's just a new fantasy app that my buddies have been making us use, the Sleeper app.
Okay.
Um, and so what I've noticed with it is it's really, and I think this was its original purpose, it's really good at giving you like sports, specifically in this scenario, football updates. Like they are on top of it.
Okay.
If there's a rumor going around about a player on your team, it is a push notification to your phone. So, I was looking at it the other day for a fantasy basketball perspective, and not necessarily that I want to do a fantasy basketball league, although that would be dope. Maybe we look into it. Might be too late now, but
I might have a spot for you actually in another league too. So I'll talk to you about that after the podcast.
all right, we can turn my team into like a drive and dish podcast. Everybody that listens, we all make a collective decision on what we do with my team. Um, but the Sleeper app, they send some great push notifications, and I signed myself up for basketball one, so it was kind of cool, like keeping up to date with all the stuff and how it was going. It was a good time. But we're gonna get into some previews a little bit because the season is so close, and we're gonna start in the East because I feel like a lot of the news happening right now in general is with the East.
Bucks are the defending champs too. That was my logic. Is that
Oh,
you got to pay homage to the champs.
yeah, I guess that too. I wasn't going that lane at all, but you're probably right. So we will do that as well. But first, we wanted to jump in on the situation between the the healthcare fraud that was going on that was announced the other day, and then the ruling that's actually come down about Kyrie Irving, that's essentially saying he's able to practice at the Nets practice facility, because I believe, if I remember the way it was worded, is that the practice facility, is a private facility, so he'll be good to be able to do that. But the city's vaccine mandate requires athletes playing in public venues to be vaccinated. So he's able to practice, but if he were to play in a game, he would have to be vaccinated. So that's what's going on with Kyrie Irving. I mean, obviously a decent amount of a distraction for the Nets, which is probably not what they necessarily need, because for the Nets, in my opinion, it's win it all this year or bust with the team that they put together. So does Kyrie being able to at least practice do anything? Because, I mean, you're not there for the game. So I guess the argument would be, if he's able to practice, at the bare minimum, you're at least able to practice against one of the best NBA players, and that should, make your team better. But if he can't see the court for an actual game, then what's the point?
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is, it's tough because Brooklyn obviously has, and not to jump ahead too far, but Brooklyn is the favorite to win the title this year. Like, no doubt about it. If they are healthy, they should, in theory, smoke everyone. Like, I think they are significantly better than everyone else in the league right now. We even saw signs of it last year when it was just KD and Kyrie. So that's the one part of me that's like, if they have KD and Harden and the rest of the depth is all there the way it has, and the way they drafted well, and a couple of signings that they hit, like, I can't believe Patty Mills is on that roster. Like, that just feels like so ridiculous that they're going to be able to bring him off the bench. They're going to be fine, I think, regardless of what Kyrie does. But here's the thing. The team has said that it's not a distraction. They're with Kyrie. They're not worried about it. But the longer this looms, if he's not playing games and if injuries happen and he just won't play because he's not doing the common sense thing, then yeah, I would be frustrated too if I'm in a championship type season. Like, the Brooklyn Nets are championship or bust. They want to win this year. If there's
Right.
anything that can remotely jeopardize that, because we saw it last year with health, it takes a lot of things to go right to win a championship. Kyrie Irving potentially willingly knocking himself out of half the games, it feels like a problem. And again, it just goes back to my thing. It's the inherent selfishness of it all of an NBA player. Like, I, as Kyrie Irving's teammate, would be annoyed with this because it is A, a distraction, and B, the most important thing in sports is being available, and you may not be available. It got to Andrew Wiggins. We talked about Andrew Wiggins a little bit. Andrew Wiggins got dose one. He's getting the vaccine. I listen. He's not thrilled about it, and I think that all of his complete reasonings were out of his mind. But he went and got it. He's got to play. Like he's. I think he cracked under the pressure of needing to play in these games. Kyrie isn't there yet. It's good that he can practice, but I just it's just so boneheaded. And I guess that's my thing. And I guess I'm not surprised here. Like we see this with Kyrie Irving all the time, but it's like focus on the mission, Kyrie. Like it's a distraction, and you don't want to be a distraction.
And not to bash Kyrie, but it does feel like there are situations that he has put himself in with multiple teams where he has become a distraction, you know?
Well, yeah.
Whether it's good or bad or just, something he said, but
He's run out of goodwill on that front. Like that's the thing is like you do it once, okay, but we've seen it at the end of Cleveland, we've seen it in Boston, we're now seeing it in Brooklyn. Like,
well, and I would say
fool me twice, fool me once, fool me twice. Like,
sure, I agree, but I feel like some like some of the stuff he said about Boston, I don't think he was necessarily wrong. It just did create a distraction, like some of the things that happened there, when he called out Boston fans in general, like he's not wrong. That is kind of a known thing that Boston can be not a great place, and
no.
can sometimes be a racist place to go if you're a basketball player. I don't think that's a hidden thing. So like things like that, like again, like you were saying, it's a distraction, but not necessarily like in I guess Kyrie's defense, he wasn't wrong in that one specifically.
No, and I don't have a problem with it. Like Kyrie has been very vocal, very involved on the social justice front, and I don't have a problem with any of that. Like if that's what he wants to do, I don't think Kyrie Irving is a bad human being. I
No.
just think he's kind of an idiot sometimes, and that's exactly what this is. Like this is just such a boneheaded decision to not get vaccinated. You're costing yourself potentially not playing games, and you don't really have a good reason for it. And that's kind of my thing. Is it's like at least with Jonathan Isaac, I genuinely believe the religion thing is real. Like Jonathan Isaac is an ordained pastor. He's been a very vocal Christian the whole time. Again, I personally don't agree with his stance. I think his stance is completely asinine, and that if you're not getting the vaccine, I don't really understand the logic there. I don't, unless you have a true medical exemption. And I believe that they're out there, obviously. But at least with I think it's coming from like a real religion perspective. Like when Andrew Wiggins tried to pull that, it's like, well, Andrew Wiggins, what are you talking about? And that's kind of how I feel with Kyrie. Like, what exactly is the belief and the research set and all that? Everybody says they're doing their own research. What does that look like?
Mhm.
And that's my point is I just think it's stupid bullshit. Like I'll say it, but I know we got to bleep that. Sorry in advance, Justin, but I just think that's what it is.
Probably
Like
won't even bleep it, and we'll probably get an angry, what from somebody.
it's just ridiculous. Like I don't understand the thinking consistently that goes behind not getting the vaccine, and especially again, I would be furious if I was Kyrie's teammate because you're making a decision that is potentially costing us. You're putting us at risk with your health decision. This isn't a situation where Kyrie Irving is just sitting at home and minding his own business.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day too, from maybe even at 15th guy on the bench, that at the end of the day boils down to money that could also be getting cost. So that's a side of it as well. And it's just wild. And I wonder if we get to a point where could you imagine we're like, just because I know the Warriors are another team that we're going through it with Wiggins and Wiggins potentially not being able to play the home games with all that stuff going on. But um, could you imagine if it was like Warriors Nets and Wiggins again, I know he got the first shot, but Wiggins isn't able to play any of the Nets home games and Kyrie isn't able to play any. Well, I guess neither of them would be able to play anything at that point because they wouldn't be able to play each other's venues. You can just imagine the finals and two of your starters are just gone, but hopefully we don't get to a point like that.
No,
The other legal thing going on before we get into the GM survey is that 18 former NBA players were charged Thursday with pocketing a rumored amount of close to $2.5 million illegally by defrauding the league's healthcare and welfare benefit plan in what they're calling a scam. A lot of bigger name players were named in this. We don't have to go through everybody, but there were some champions on the list that we can say. Um, apparently one of the instances that was talked about, at least on ESPN's article, was that a former a former player was playing basketball in Taiwan when he was supposedly getting $48,000 worth of root canals, which is like holy hell amount of root canals.
It's so terrible.
Just every tooth's getting drilled, which the thought is killing me inside. And crowns on 8 teeth in California. That was back in 2018. So obviously, if you're getting 48K worth of root canals and crowns done in Beverly Hills, California, how are you also in Taiwan playing basketball? So, these are some of the stories that are coming out about it, and we'll see where it goes. I feel like, and I think I mentioned this off the mic, I feel like something similar happened recently in the NFL where players were caught or called out for doing something similar to this. I haven't been able to find the story, so maybe I'm completely off with that, but I feel like I saw a story that was similar to this from the NBA perspective or from the NFL perspective.
Yeah, I'll have to check at the NFL. I'm not 100%. I do think that I'm with you in the sense that it rings a bell a little bit about a healthcare scheme involving professional athletes. Terrence Williams is the alleged ringleader of all this. The case is coming down in the Southern District of New York. Bigger names that are on the list: Glenn Big Baby Davis, who has been in legal trouble in the past. I mean, there was that. He's got found in a hotel with like 126 grams of weed and 92K in cash, and he got arrested for that. And then he had that video on the plane of him saying, "Why do I need to sell weed for?" But all this other, so that he's on that list. Tony Allen is on that list, which makes me really sad. I like Tony Allen a lot.
Yeah.
First team all defense, the grind father.
Sorry, I found it. It was Clinton Portis pled guilty to fraud charges.
Oh yeah, okay. I did see that. Yes,
Yeah.
I did actually see that the other day. The one selfishly as a homer that hurts the most is Tony Roten, man. Tony Roten is a process legend. I love Tony
Dude,
Roten.
so when I was looking at the names, I thought about making a joke about how Tony Rowan was the biggest name player on this list, and I was like, only like day one, Drive and Dish listeners are gonna know the joke about how we love Tony Roten and all this stuff.
I
But
love that dude. Tony Roten just leaned into being a Sixer when it was quote unquote tanking season and everyone like was just getting traded left and right. Like, and they knew they were going to be bad and not win any games, but Tony Roten embraced being there. Like, it sounds corny and cliche, but he embraced the process. But obviously it wasn't going to be there long term and hasn't. He's been in the league in geez, it's like 4, 5, 6 years at this point. But yeah,
his
ultimately caught up in
his
this.
his last season was actually with the Sixers in 2015,
Wow,
2016.
that has really been that long. That's crazy.
And in that, he only actually really, I mean, so that he only played 8 games that season. And then the season before that, the 2014-2015 seasons was when he scored. He was averaging almost 17 points per game.
Yeah, he started.
Only 15 games though.
Yeah,
I feel like I feel like Tony Roten in the 76ers lore, and maybe this is like slander on my part, and if it is, I'm horribly sorry and mistaken. But Tony Roten started less than 35 games for the Sixers in his entire career, and he's like a legend for us.
I believe. Well, legend. Like he's a hometown hero for me. I wouldn't say. Well, I don't know anymore. I mean, I guess he's got involved in this, unfortunately. Shannon Brown is on this list.
Yeah.
Shannon Brown was obviously on the Lakers for a while. Alan Anderson was on this list. Again, 18 players, obviously in total here. They've all been arrested. We'll see what happens. We'll keep you posted. But I mean, yeah, Tony Allen too. That one just makes me sad. I like Tony Allen a lot.
Well, and I don't necessarily understand the NBA, like how it works for retired NBA players in terms of healthcare and benefits like that. I know obviously we work with Austin here at our station, and he's a former NFL player, and he was kind of saying that like when you retire, like most of your stuff is recovered, like or covered. No matter what you need to do, it's probably covered, and you just have to I guess you have like representatives and stuff, and you just have to reach out and figure it out. So if that's the case, it does feel like it could be fairly easy to be taken advantage of, you know?
Mhm.
So, that can also I wonder what kind of changes come from the NBA side of things when it's all said and done. But on to more fun stuff. The GM survey has officially come out. You can check it out at NBA.com, but I just wanted to highlight some of the fun stuff. The most likely to, or the one most GMs would like to build around, I don't think it's any surprise. Luca got number one over Giannis. Those were the top two. LeBron still got a lot of love. He was named both the league's most versatile player and the best basketball IQ, and he tied Jokic for the most votes for best passer. So shout out to him. What we'll actually be getting into is teams we think that are going to win the finals, and their votes for that was actually the Brooklyn Nets got 72% of the votes. Lakers came in number 2, and Bucks came in at number 3. So I don't know if that's any slander in a way for the former champions and the defending champs, the Milwaukee Bucks, but maybe it is a little bit. And to put it in perspective, the Lakers last year had an 81% vote in the GM survey.
So I think it's a little bit slanderous in the sense that it feels weird that we're not giving the defending champs the best chance to run it back. I also think people watched that Brooklyn Milwaukee series last year and saw them almost win it with just Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Saw them absolutely blow the doors off Milwaukee when they were healthy.
Yeah.
So I would agree with the GMs there in the sense that, Milwaukee is the favorite, or excuse me, Brooklyn is the favorite. I think Milwaukee comes in at 3 because they're in the conference with Brooklyn. Like if Milwaukee was in the West, they would be the clear 2 to me, I think. Because I do think Milwaukee is better than probably anyone in the West for my money. The Lakers could be, maybe, if everything goes right with Russ, but that's still a big TBD. I need to see that fit. Phoenix is tough because I think they're going to have the hangover. Denver's not going to have Jamal Murray. The Clippers aren't going to have Kawhi. So at that point, I do think Milwaukee's probably better than everybody in the West. So if Milwaukee is playing in the West, they would be the number 2 to me. But because I think they're behind Brooklyn in the Eastern Conference, there's less of a chance for them to make the finals if you believe that Brooklyn is the best team. And so I think, is it a slight? For sure. Should they absolutely use that as motivation? Absolutely. But, I'm not, it's kind of makes sense. Like if I was voting, that's more than likely where I'd be at as well.
Yeah. So, player most likely to have a breakout season, Jaren Jackson Jr. got voted the most at 17%. Anthony Edwards had number 2. Although I feel like, and I get it, it's a breakout season, but to me, it's well, Edwards is going on his second season. How do you have? For me, it's hard to say you have a breakout season your second season in, And I know usually people pop on their second season, but it's we are only able to compare you to your rookie season at this point. So how, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I disagree though slightly. I think if it depends on context. Like if you show
Sure.
significant, massive improvement, like Anthony Edwards being the number 1 pick, and I mean the first half of the season last year, he wasn't really that good, and then he started to show the signs, and in the second half had a lot that you can build on, and a lot that Minnesota could be excited about. Like Anthony Edwards is extremely young. I could see him. He's one of those kids as he just naturally gets older, and then B has a full NBA offseason under his books and can work on, his deficiencies and hit the weight room and, get in shape for the NBA, year 2. I can see there being a breakout where, he may start looking more like the number 1 overall pick that he was billed to be when he was drafted, the other year.
Mhm.
So I get it and I don't. I do think the breakout can be a little later when you have a couple seasons in and then you really take that leap age wise. But no, I think you can have those big breakouts in year 2 where you can be, kind of have those struggles as a rookie, but then put it all together once you've had a full season under your belt. And I think with Anthony, it's different maybe if you come out and set the league on fire right away. Like if
Sure.
you're one of those rookies who just comes out, who like with John Morant, for example. John Morant just balled out his entire rookie year, took the league by storm. With him in year 2, them making the playoffs was a breakthrough, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a breakout because he was so good the entire course of the year. Um, with Anthony Edwards, I just don't feel that way. Like Anthony Edwards was definitely going through some growing pains, some struggles, some adjustment at the beginning of last year. Like he's 19 years old. Like we shouldn't really be surprised by that. But I could see him having a breakout. The bigger surprise to me is Jaren Jackson. Because I feel like, and Grizzlies fans, tweet us, let us know if we're off here. But it feels like the Grizzlies A, because of the injuries, but then B, even when he came back, I don't think and granted, I think he was coming off a major surgery, so it's maybe unfair to expect him to look 100%, but
Sure.
it didn't seem like he felt as much as part of the young core as he once did at like his rookie year. He looked really, really good. Like Jaren Jackson looked like he was going to be, a key piece for them moving forward. I still think he definitely has that potential to be like he showed at rookie year. There's a lot there, even post injury. I guess I'm just surprised because it seems like his stock was pretty low in Memphis last year. Like it was headed more down than up. And so I'm a little surprised to see him turn it around and for GMs to have this much confidence in him to turn it to come back and take those next steps. Obviously that would be a huge gain for the
Oh,
Grizzlies if he gets back to his rookie year level and then some.
sure, and like you were saying, I mean, last year he played what? I think it was 11 games total. Yes, 11 games total, and all of it came at the end-ish, like May and April, obviously. And like you were saying, I mean, he put up decent numbers just looking at those games as a whole and looking at them actually separated out. Um, I just feel like it's hard to gauge him from last year because you got so little. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the second he came in, they were it was like you have to win. So they probably didn't have a lot of time to like acclimate and get in the vibe of it. So I think with that comes some potential that he could have a quote unquote breakout year because we saw in 2019, 2020 what he was capable of in 57 games. And I think that was very positive. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, I'm excited for him. I like the Grizzlies. We turn into like Grizzlies experts for at least 1 week every NBA season for some reason. Um, so we'll see where it goes. Last two that we'll do is most underrated player acquisition was Larry Nance Jr. for Portland, and Patty Mills we mentioned already was number two. Spencer Dinwiddie came in at number three, going to Washington. And then the last one, which is a thing we'll probably end up talking about here as the big meat of the episode, is which team will be the most improved in 2021, 2022. It may not be a surprise, but the Chicago Bulls were ranked number one with 27% of the vote, and Golden State Warriors came in at number two. Now, personally, I feel like the safer bet would be potentially betting on Steph Curry and the Warriors to do better than the Bulls did in terms of improvement. But I also think you can't discredit the names that have come to the Bulls. So that's something we're also going to be talking about later on this episode.
Yeah, the Warriors make a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, you just naturally get Klay Thompson back. Excited to see him back on the court. That'll be one of the big early storylines of the NBA season. We haven't seen him in basically 2 years now.
Mhm.
I really liked a lot of the Warriors offseason acquisitions too. Like I think the roster makes a little more sense than it did last year. So I could see them improving and moving up the ladder of the West again. I think there's an opportunity there. Chicago too. Yeah, Chicago's a no-brainer in terms of improvement. We'll get into them a little deeper, but going out and making the trade for Nick Vucevic last year, Zach LaVine obviously breaking out these past couple of years, and then when you go out and you add DeMar DeRozan, you add Lonzo Ball, you get a role player like Alex Caruso. Like they really push their chips in a little bit more. I don't know that they're going to contend in the East or anything like that, but are you telling me with that much firepower, can they get back into the playoffs and be better than they've been the last couple of years and give teams a hard time night in and night out? Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And
No.
then what was the forgive me, what was the other one before that? The three you said? Oh, the acquisition one with Larry Nance. I think Larry Nance, I mean, that makes sense to me because I think Larry Nance is really the type of player that Portland needs. Like they need those long athletic wings. They need somebody who can defend. Like that's what they've been missing for a while. I think there's a ceiling realistically on how good Larry Nance is and what exactly he does for that team. But in terms of the type of player that they need to bring in, yeah, oh yeah, Larry Nance is exactly what they needed on that roster.
Yeah, I like it, and we already talked about Patty Mills, who came in at number two for Brooklyn. That's another huge,
It's
great get
crazy.
for Brooklyn. It's probably going to be one of the difference makers, down.
Brooklyn's so damn good. Like that might as well be the name of this episode. Is just Brooklyn is so damn good. Like Justin said, we'll get into the East here in a little bit more. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Still starving.
Me right now? Um,
You just went and ran a 5K.
yeah, so I got last night, one of my coworkers comes in and goes, "Are you coming to my race tomorrow?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, the race, we're doing a 5K tomorrow. We talked about it on air." And I was like, "We didn't, but okay." And so I'm like, "It's 5." I'm like, "Oh, it's only a 5K." I was like, "What time is it?" And he's like, "Oh, it's at, it starts at 8 in the morning." He goes, "It's called the Stuff Your Face race. And there will be like local food there. And then there's Kelly's ice cream at the end of it." And it literally, as soon as that sentence came out, I was like, "We're done. We're going
Done.
there." I
I'm
was
in.
like, "It's not an endorsement." But I was like, "Okay, we're there." I was like, "I'm going," because I was already going to run anyway. And I'm like, "Oh, well, if you're holding an event and, you get a free bib for me, I get free ice cream." Like, yeah, I don't take much convincing to do that. I felt bad because, and shout out to my friend Nick, he was looking for a way out of it. And he's like, "Oh, I'll only go if Kevin goes. There's no way he's going to go." And then they brought it up to me, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'll 100% go." And he's like, "Damn it, man. I got to go run now."
Well, listen, I would not, if someone came to me right now and said, "Do you want to run a 5K?" I would tell them to F right off.
Everyone who listens to this podcast could run a 5K if it was a life or death situation, including you.
I
You
don't.
ran Gate River's way harder than a 5K.
Yeah, but I trained for that. I haven't been
Yeah, true.
running at all. Like the most running I do is when I play basketball and stuff like that. Like there's no there's no long distance running that I've been doing. I'm still not even sure if my knee could do it right now because it gets so messed up with my IT band because I don't stretch. So that's a big
Yeah,
part of it.
you gotta start stretching, man. That's important. Who is still starving?
Jaren Jackson Jr., who is
Oh,
our most likely to break out season candidate from the GM survey.
well, that's the type of mentality he needs if he's gonna break out. So that's good to see at least.
Someone get this dude some food. He's hungry.
Yeah, right. What do they feed him? Memphis is one of the best barbecue cities on earth. There should be plenty.
Well, maybe he's not a big barbecue guy.
Yeah, right. Then he's in the wrong place. Who's
True.
Give me a break. Only non-barbecue people should be vegans. Besides that, like, who are you doing?
I know Nicole's not a big barbecue person, but I think it's because she doesn't like the sauces. She's not a big sauce person. So like,
Is that just in general or just barbecue?
nah, just in general. So like,
Oh,
when it
okay.
comes to barbecue, she's kind of like, I'm good.
She
And I'm like,
probably like Texas more then. Texas barbecue doesn't use as much sauce.
yeah, she'll be fine. Like she'll eat brisket. If just literally brisket. Like you don't have to put anything on it for her. She'll like that. But um, a big part of barbecue is the sauce.
If
So
I if I ever hit the Powerball or some crazy like that, just stumbled upon some lump sum of money, one of the things I would do is I would just get in a car and I'd do a barbecue tour and like start driving, like drive up to the Carolinas and do South Carolina with all the mustard sauces and going north and then start cutting west and go through Tennessee and go to
take,
Memphis and then
what is that? 40. Take 40 west.
yeah,
Just go
exactly.
40.
End up in Memphis, go to Kansas City, and then once you get to Kansas City, do all that and then start cutting south and end in Texas and do all that. I've had barbecue in Texas. Like I've had barbecue in both Austin and San Antonio. Absolutely incredible. Best brisket I've ever had, hands down. But it's nice with everywhere because you get, different places. Like Carolina, they're known for pork. Kansas City's kind of only the one that's known for everything. But
Yeah.
that's I'm not going to wade into the who's the best. We're gonna have too many different types of people in our mentions, so I'm going to chill on that. But hey, leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep, and we are also on YouTube now, so you can head over to YouTube, search Drive and Dish. You'll be able to find us there. Shout out to Caden Woods, who is subscriber number 20. So we are
All
now,
right.
if I believe, we are looking for subscriber number 21. We'll be sure to give you a shout out. Ricky also comments on our video saying, "Great vid. Looking forward to more uploads. This deserves way more views. I'd recommend using some promotion ways to get people on your channel." Thank you, Ricky. We know about promotion stuff and we don't do it.
Uh,
Listen, man, there's so many things we could be doing, but there's only so much time in the day. And I get it. Someone listening that does, SEO and all that stuff would be like, "Oh my God, you guys just need to do it." But it's like, look, man, we deal
no,
with
we need
it daily.
we need an intern, honestly. Like that would be the difference. It's just because like it's just because you and I have full-time jobs, and that just obviously jams us up. It makes us a little busy.
Yeah.
Um, we would, you know, uh, I'm
We
trying to
would
get better. I'm trying to get better about doing more on the YouTube channel, but I'm not gonna lie. Like the Twitter game is just non-existent at this point outside of
at
our own
this point,
accounts.
at this point, you should just follow us because that's where I'll
Yeah.
honestly. Here's the real down low of it is I got kicked out of our Twitter account like
Oh, really?
like 4 years ago.
I haven't like I don't know why it's avoided like because it's on my TweetDeck. I use TweetDeck. And it's still there. So like I still can respond to people. There was somebody who tweeted us a while ago and he
At
said, "Hear me out." He said the Sixers should trade Ben Simmons to Phoenix for Chris Paul. And I was like, "I hear you, but
no,
A, there's no planet where that would ever happen. And B, why on earth would Phoenix do that? Like Phoenix just made the finals. What they trade for Ben Simmons for?"
that is also true. But that's the same. I mean, there's talk of um, there is talk of the Nets wanting him potentially. You know,
Oh,
we mentioned
that's so
that.
fake. That's so
You think
fake.
it
It's
is?
not even funny. Yes, I mean, sure, if we're playing fantasy GM mode and emotions aren't a thing and team chemistry is not a thing, then yeah, I would totally understand the logic there because Ben Simmons' skill set would be phenomenal on the Nets. But
Sure.
no, they're not trading. No, no, it's unrealistic.
By the way, I just Googled Drive and Dish NBA podcast.
Hmm.
The first this is probably bad for us. We should probably look into this. The first thing that pops up is our episode from back in the day when we were on. Shout out to the guys at Blog Talk Radio. This episode is from 4 years ago, and wow, do we look like we are in rough shape.
Is it our highest like rated episode ever?
I don't know. No, it's when we talked to Tamberlin for the Raptors Republic.
Oh wow, that's really long ago.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think it was a Tim Solo episode. Actually, now that I'm looking at the
Well,
description,
Tim has episodes, and shout out to Tim, obviously. Tim has episodes on his personal YouTube channel from back in the day. Like, I think even a couple that may not be online from like random periscopes that we did,
yeah,
or just like, when we were doing interviews, like we would just pass the camera around and film a little bit. Like, there are definitely, like, there's a video I saw of us in the old, like, power studio in Jacksonville. Um, Doing the episode we were like talking about the Clippers off season and Doc Rivers is the GM still and all these other things. Um, and so yeah, there's a couple of older ones like lingering out there. There's a good portion. Like I think the oldest episode that we have online right now is from 2015, which would be season two. It would either be the end of season one or no, season 1 was over in 2014, never mind. It would either be some point at the end of season 2 or the beginning of season 3. Season 1 and season 2 are largely not on the internet, which is probably good for everyone. And I'm not even saying that because there's something deep or dark in there. It's just because I don't know, we were just kids back then.
we were being dumb. I'm back in our old. I must have had the old login from way back in the day, and because like I said, our episodes on Blog Talk haven't been posted for close to 3 years now.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's a way I can just submit our RSS feed into this thing again and like load it back up. But what I'm realizing is it's all because Tim was like the mastermind behind everything we did. So it's all Tim's stuff. So if I do that, I'm worried it's gonna like bill him. I'm like, I don't want I don't want him to have to pay for anything or be like, yo, what the heck happened, guys?
We're back. We're back from the dead. Season 1.
Resurrected, what's good?
It would be funny. Like I do wish there were clips that we had a couple from back then because there are definitely funny moments that I can think of.
Yeah.
And just that there I would love to just hear some of our hilarious takes that have just aged so badly. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess anyway, hey, welcome to I don't consider it officially until the season starts,
Yeah.
but shout out to everybody still listening because it's about to be season 9. So like we're talking about season 1 and 2. We are way later now at this point. Which is really crazy to think about. I mean, the first NBA, the season 1 started in like mid-February. I just when we started doing demo episodes, and then the first one I think officially went up like kind of the beginning of March, and we did all the way through the finals, and then obviously the summer and stuff like that. Because
Sure.
the first finals that we did, the first champion while we did the podcast was the Spurs beating the Heat in the second year straight they played in the finals. Like the years that basically the last year with the big three and um when Kawhi got his title with San Antonio and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I can't believe it's been how long we've been doing it. Like I never would have thought we would have gotten this far along, you know?
Yeah. Who'd have thought? Not us.
Who'd have thought? Well, listen, look, I'm trying to get us back on this on Blog Talk right now. I don't know why I've decided to do this in the middle of our actual podcast, but
Yeah,
that's
I'm
great
sure our
planning.
listeners are thrilled with that. Leave us a review on iTunes. Let us know if you love it or hate it. And if you've got season one somewhere, if you got an episode saved or something like that, let me know. That'd be awesome. And now a word from our sponsors.
So we come back and we try to preview the East. The way I figured we go about this is we would kind of just go from a eagle-eyed perspective where we do the um, top teams, teams we think that are going to win it all, maybe name one or two. And I feel like we already gave a little bit of away with the Nets. I feel like we both would be idiots to not at least have the Nets on the list for both of us, but that's okay. So we'll talk about top team predictions. Pick maybe each of us pick an underrated team that might overperform expectations next year. And then on the other side of that, pick a team that might be, I guess disappointing is not the right word, but a team that may not perform well or show improvement next year. So
So,
let's start at the top. Let's start with the top teams.
okay.
Obviously, Nets, I think both of us universally agree Nets are going to be on that list.
Yeah.
Easy.
Milwaukee's a clear two. Milwaukee's a clear two to me. Nets are one. Nets are
Yeah.
easy. Milwaukee is the clear two to me.
I
Um, I,
disagree.
oh, you don't think Milwaukee? Really?
I think the Heat. I think the Heat might be there.
Oh, I don't. I think
I think
Milwaukee's.
I think they're I think they're tick for tack. I think the Bucks and Heat are same level in my head.
I think Miami's three. Like, I don't think they're far behind the Heat. Like, I think they're there, but like, Giannis ascended, bro. Giannis is scary now, man.
I know. I just, dude, I'm wondering. You know what I mean? Like I could see. I think the Heat have made a ton of awesome moves, and one of them being PJ Tucker taking them. Like, not only are you getting the player that can give you that energy in the playoffs, you took him from the team that most likely you're going to eventually have to go up against.
Yeah, I do think the Bucks took a hit defensively this year than last year. Um, like you said, PJ Tucker's a big reason for that. Him not being back in the fold. Drew Holiday is still in the fold, so that's always great. We know how good he's going to become playoff time. I do love the moves the Heat made. If the Heat get their guys to, I mean, Duncan Robinson was great last year, but like if Tyler Hero bounces back, Bam bounces back a little bit. You've got Jimmy Butler in the fold, obviously. They're going to be in a good position to be number three. Like I think they're pretty definitively the third best team for me. I can't give in the way that Giannis looked at the end of last year. Like I think Giannis is just so much better than anybody on either of those
I
teams
get
at
it.
this point.
I get
And
it.
that's kind of where I'm at. Like I have them going closer to tit for tat with Brooklyn than I do with Miami. I do think Miami is three though. Like I agree with you there that I think Miami is now. I think they're better than the Sixers. I think they're better than Atlanta and New York and a couple of these other teams, Boston as well, that were hanging around the mix as well. Like I do think that with the Kyle Lowry move mainly, that solidifies them as three, and that's when it starts to get a little harder. Like that's when you've got a couple teams that are because the Sixers just obviously are such a wild card. You don't know what they're going to look like if Ben
Yep.
Simmons like if the roster is currently constructed. I think they're probably somewhere around
And
4, 5, 6.
I think, like, to me, like you were kind of saying, I feel like after you have the top tier premium teams, which I think we both agree are some sort of Nets, Heat, Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I think you have like the sub A teams that, in my mind, are some combination of Hawks, Celtics, Sixers and maybe the Knicks, depending on how the Knicks look going forward. I mean, we got to give them the credit for making the playoffs last year, so they
Mhm.
could possibly be in that list as well. Like that, it would be my like sub top tier teams would be some combo of Hawks, Celtics, Sixers, Knicks, and I think Hawks and Celtics, in my opinion, would be the higher two in that grouping.
So, do you have? We talked about them a little bit earlier. You put Chicago in that list?
No, I would put them right below it only because like I wanna see it, right? Like
Hmm.
I think they will be there. Like I think they're making the playoffs, if not a play-in tournament this year, you know?
Yeah.
But I would put them in that like if Nets, Heat, Bucks are top tier, Hawks, Celtics, Sixers, so Sixers, Knicks are that sub tier team. I would say like Bulls, Pacers, and Hornets are my like that grouping of teams are my like probably going to make the playoffs teams.
Yeah. My
And
eighth.
that by the way is more than 8 teams. That's 9 teams total. So like well, actually I think it's 10 teams. I said Pacers too. So like that's 2 teams that won't be making it, right? But I
Yeah.
would that's my teams that I think will be competing for a playoff spot if not in the playoffs by you know by close to the end of the season next year or this
I,
year.
I think that Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and Miami are locks. I think Philly is a lock to make the playoffs. I think Boston is a lock to make the playoffs. That's five right there.
Yep.
And then at that point is when you can start to debate a little bit. I think Atlanta's still in. I don't think Atlanta's going out. I think they're headed in the right direction. That's six. At that point, dude, I do. I think Chicago gets in. I think they added just DeRozan is still really good. He can score. Like I don't think Chicago is going to go more than or further than maybe the second round. But I think Chicago's in. Like I do think they get in. And at that point, that's where it kind of gets interesting because it becomes, what does Toronto look like this year? They dealt with a lot of injuries last year. Are they able to bounce back? Like you mentioned, Indy. To me, the two to watch for that last spot are the Knicks and Charlotte. The Knicks, it, I just, I love the Julius Randle contract, but I need to see Julius Randle play at that level again for me to fully buy in. And that sounds ridiculous, but it's kind of true.
Okay.
And I just think he's the key to them if they're going to be back closer to 4 and 5 the way they were like last year.
Mhm.
Um, I love the Kemba Walker get for them. I think they overpaid for Fournier, but I get it from a fit perspective. Obviously, bringing Derrick Rose back, he played a lot of good minutes for them last year. So much though depends on Randall and RJ and RJ's development. If they develop and Randall plays like he did last year, I think the Knicks are a lock. Like I do think they're in. Like I think they're probably better than Chicago. They're maybe better than Boston at that point. They're maybe better than Atlanta again. Um, or finish higher than Atlanta, I should say. Um, eh, so I don't know. Like, it's not me just trying to dump on the Knicks, but like, I do need to see it out of Julius Randle again. Like, Julius Randle last year was everything going right, and he deserved the big pay increase he got, and he was awesome last year, definitively. But they're the ones that worry me the most about a fall off. I guess that's the question. Is I do worry about that. I think Kemba will help prevent that, though. Like, Kemba was a really good get for them, even in his older age now, and with him starting to decline a little bit. Um, Charlotte is the other one that I think Charlotte's going to be a lot of fun. I think they're going to be hanging right around the mix as their young guys develop. And then obviously they've got a good mix of vets in there as well. Gordon Hayward's still there. Terry Rozier happy with a new contract. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think Indy is probably out. I know they're getting Brogdon back, but I also think Indy's a prime trade candidate. So we'll see what happens there. And then after that is where it's kind of starts to, I think Cleveland will be better, but I don't think they're making the playoffs. Washington is not making the playoffs, or the same with Orlando, same with Detroit. Those are the ones I pretty confidently can say I don't think are getting in.
Yeah. I kind of feel the same way. Like they've got Orlando, Detroit, they've got some bigger names now finally in the draft, but it's still they're rookies and specifically from the Magic side, they um got rid of like most of their scoring, from last year and during the year, not just necessarily at the end, but they got rid of a lot of people, so I feel like that's an easy kind of just say they might be in a situation where they're not going to go crazy, but they'll not be competing for a playoff spot, in my opinion. Maybe they prove me wrong, but that's kind of the vibe that I was getting out of it. So from that conversation, I think a team that could potentially be considered an underrated team, though I think people would be surprised that they're on this, is probably the Celtics because of how disappointing of a season they had last year with all the drama and just not necessarily living up to potential. If they do live up to the potential that we think they have with their stars, like, they could probably be a bit of an underrated team, right?
They made good moves too.
Yeah.
Like I like Al Horford going back there. He makes a lot of sense even as he gets older. Um, I like keeping Marcus Smart around. There was a lot of talk about him getting moved, but I
Yep.
like him staying in the fold. And like as long as they have Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, like you got two really good ones right there. Being able to get out of Kemba's contract, I think gave them a little more flexibility, so that's good as well. Like I don't think Boston necessarily was as dramatic last year. I just think there was a little bit of disappointment. I don't think they were as good necessarily as people
Right.
expected. I also just think like now it's a new chapter. Like I think I'm excited so far with what they've seen. Like I like Udoka as the coaching hire. We'll see what Brad Stevens does in the front office, but so far so good. So no, I think Boston's gonna be a really good team.
Yeah, and that's why I think they could be kind of underrated is just because of last year, people might not be taking them as serious as they probably should. And then obviously I put the Bulls on there as well, just because of all the name power and star power that they brought there. Um, you know, I think for sure with at least the star power, that should put them at a spot where they're contending for a playoff spot in the East. And if not, that will be beyond disappointing for the Bulls. Um, so I
Oh, it'd
think
be a
I think that's
disaster.
fair. Right, right.
The Bulls were like the Bulls reminded me of what Atlanta did last offseason, where they just went out.
Exactly.
They got good vets. They surrounded their young guys. Like that's what the Bulls are trying to do. They're
Yeah.
to essentially mimic that success. They spend a lot of money. It would be a tremendous disappointment if they don't, at the minimum, make the playoffs.
And it could be the same situation like the Hawks, where half the season we're like, "Oh, wow, they spent all this money. This is pretty disappointing. They're not doing it." And then it finally clicks, you know? Although
Yeah.
in the preseason, against the Pelicans, it looked pretty damn good. So,
But Billy Donovan's got to hope for his sake that's not the case because the Hawks fired Lloyd Pierce and then never looked back.
well, true that. So, hopefully that's not the case. And then obviously a team that's trending down, do you have somebody specifically that you think, could be on the downward trend? In my opinion, I'm trying to pull up where I was gonna have it because I just lost it. But in my opinion, I think a team that could potentially be on the radar for this could be the Raptors. Because trading Kyle Lowry, you have Pascal Siakam, but you need him to kind of return to a all-star form. And, so you got some exciting rookies. You're hoping Pascal can do that, and just maybe it's not going to be as much of a vibe as we think it will be. And
No.
they were kind of on the downward trend last year, so that could potentially continue.
No, unless their young guys break out, I think they're going to be pretty bad. Scotty Barnes was more of a potential pick. Think he can be good, but I don't think he's going to be the type that comes in and sets the league on fire right away. Um, because they have good players for like Fred VanVleet is great, is a good
Yeah,
player. Pascal Siakam, like you mentioned, good player. Chris Boucher was a revelation for them last year. We'll see if he can keep that success up. Um, who am I blanking on right now?
OG.
OG, thank you, OG Anunoby. Again, want to see if he puts it all together for an entire season. If he hits the high ceiling that we think he can have, that's what they need. They need these guys to all just click and see if they can take the next steps together and rebirth the roster a little bit. But to your point, I do think they're going to miss Kyle Lowry a lot. Like, not just besides the fact that of him, what he brings on the court, they're going to miss a lot too of what he brings off the court. Like, Kyle Lowry is the staple of Toronto basketball. He's been for years now. Like, that's not the type of locker room presence that casually gets replaced. And I think that to me is going to be the hardest part of the Raptor season is trying to figure out where that void how that gets remotely. I mean, no one is ever going to properly fill Kyle Lowry's shoes in Toronto, but it's who can step up and take that role.
who's going to be able to fill it a little bit. Yeah. And that's what I wonder. So I think there is potential in that. Maybe the Raptors are one of the more disappointing teams in terms of they just won't be, they're going to be missing Kyle Lowry, and maybe we won't see them, making a playoff push.
No, I don't think the Raptors make it. I don't think Indy makes it either. So I guess that would be my disappointing one if you had it. It'd be Indy. I don't think Indy gets in. Levert's already dealing with injury issues. They do get Brogdon back, which will help, but it feels like Indy is closer to significantly changing the roster, making either a Sabonis move or a Miles Turner move or
Well, and they were even
something like
talking,
that.
I mean, they're rumored to be in talks with the Sixers for Ben, so there is a lot of that going on too,
They
like
could. They've got the players to do it, so I
right.
wouldn't rule it out.
So there is that chance as well.
That would be a good swing for them. So I could see why 100% why they'd want to make that move.
Well, and I would mention too, in the GM survey, Ben won or came in second on most defensive player type voting questions.
Oh yeah,
Obviously, because Ben Simmons is great at defense, and that's something that I think people are missing right now, obviously, because we're focusing on the offense and the fact that he's not showing up for practice.
his flaws are damning, but make no bones about it. Like Ben Simmons is arguably the best defensive player in all of basketball. Like Ben Simmons, that's why it's crazy. Is because he plays a game that's so endearing to Philadelphia, but just because of the way this has gone down, like Ben Simmons is going to be it is going to be toxic when Ben Simmons returns. Like nothing is going to ever be more toxic to me. I think that I've seen so far outside of Malice at the Palace, which is an entirely different story, but LeBron returning to Cleveland. Like in 2010, that was the wildest thing I've ever seen in terms of just, and we're from Philly. Like I've seen plenty of wild stuff in sporting events, but
Yeah.
nothing was as
Well,
just that was vicious. Ben's gonna get like it won't be that bad, but like Ben's gonna get that treatment big
dude,
time. if
they
he comes
were
back.
they were chanting F Ben Simmons at an All Elite Wrestling Philly event.
Yeah.
And that's wrestling, and they were chanting that about
And,
Ben.
and
So
it's crazy because Sixers fans have been so vocal about defending Ben Simmons and embracing all his flaws, at least real ones to me. I mean, the WIP
dude,
idiots are always harping on that, but like, I don't,
there
we ignore that.
there was a point at the not far past, probably at the beginning of the season last year, where I was having a conversation with a friend, and they were saying, if Ben, and because I think the conversation at the end of 2 seasons ago was, can these two gel together? If not, you got to ship off one of them, Ben or Simmons. And I remember them asking me, and I remember saying, and I probably said it on this podcast, I would keep Ben and I would trade Embiid because you can get more for him right now. And man, oh man, look where we are now. It's like, yo.
Oh yeah, that was so there. Like that thought entered my head just out of a sheer fit perspective and out of the like, I don't know how long centers can hold up, where I think guards hold up a lot longer. Yeah, and then Embiid just morphed into MVP Bede last year.
Ah,
And yeah, no, there's no planet where I'm ashamed that that thought came in my head at one point.
I know.
I also I got to be honest, even in best case scenario, I didn't think Embiid was going to take the leap he did last year. That was special. He was so damn good last season. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad. And so balling for me this week, I've got the Chicago Sky and the Phoenix Mercury, who will be playing in the WNBA Finals. It's going to be tipping off here this week. The Mercury punching their ticket last night. Candace Parker versus Diana Taurasi is, of course, the main matchup that everybody's going to focus on in terms of star power. But Taurasi, who is obviously viewed as the GOAT in the women's game, crazy, crazy game to put the Vegas Aces away the other night and punch that ticket to the finals. So, you're looking for some sports to watch. You need some hoops in your life. WNBA Finals going on this week.
There is this part of the season in sports is so awesome because you've got baseball going into their wild card and their playoffs.
Yep.
You got women's basketball starting up their playoffs. You've got NBA starting up the season. So you got preseason games. You've got NFL. You've got college football. It's like, holy hell, there's sports on all the time, and it is great. And it couldn't come at a better time because I'm a delinquent. And man, oh man, we are about a week away from legal sports betting here in the state of Florida, as long as nothing gets pushed back and we have to wait another month. And if I have to wait another month, I'm going to be hella pissed.
Yeah, you're off. We're gonna have to start getting. We got to get like a Justin's. Well, the point spread doesn't really work on the alliteration thing, but we got to
No,
we got to
no,
get
we'll
work.
do like Justin's jumper parlay. We'll just pick a parlay each week and I'll put $5 on it. And it'll be like we'll pick it like now. So like we'd have to pick it like for a middle of the week game so people can halfway lead up to it. And but the problem is I with basketball it's kind of hard to do it too far out. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it's really hard to do it too far out. Load management makes it like betting basketball is a nightmare. I don't know how people bet
you got to
basketball.
know
Like
how
that
to
of all the sports, I would never want to bet hoops.
if you're gonna bet hoops, it's all about you gotta okay, let me let you in on a little secret. If you're gonna do hoops, you gotta do by half and you gotta do it by like points, the over under. So
Yeah.
you like you do a live betting situation where you watch the game and you see the pace of the game for the first minute or two, and that's when you got to make that decision. Are they going to have over said amount of points? Usually like 100 something combined. You know what I mean? Like if you think both teams can get to 50 by halftime, probably worth it. You know,
Yeah.
so that's the one to do. But yeah, it's so funny. Just a little behind the scenes stuff with what's. I mean, we don't have to get into the politics of it, but the Seminole tribe it has created a sports betting book for a few states, and they're obviously trying to have one for Florida.
Mhm.
Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Seminoles own the Hard Rock in Tampa.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, and so that's kind of what they're basing this off of. And so the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I subscribe to their news press release stuff, sent a thing out the other day that was like, "Hey, legal sports betting is coming to Florida." And they were like, "You got to use the safest." They like made a point to say safest, most trustworthy sports betting app, the Hard Rock Seminole Sportsbook. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and
Well,
I
that's the
that's what's holding this up is there was the conversations between the Seminole tribe and whether you know what I mean? Like they just wanted to make sure everything was fair and in the right lanes. I know so little about it, right? So like
the short version is the Seminole tribe has a vice grip on gambling in Florida. Like they just have always controlled it. They run the casinos, like that's their thing. And so obviously with things like FanDuel and DraftKings and all these other, I mean, dude,
yeah,
when I go home, whenever I'm home in Pennsylvania now, like I get inundated with commercials that's just
yeah, yeah.
nonstop trying to get people to bet. And you can't do that in Florida. Like none of those apps are legal. Like you can't do FanDuel
Well,
or DraftKings or any of that like
and
that in
so
Nevada
what was crazy to
or in
me was
Florida.
when they sent the email out, the Jags sent that email out, right? Like I have a few of the apps because like you said, when I go back to Pennsylvania, I might get a little crazy,
Yeah.
Like it's so when you're in Florida because it can use your location and you try to open it, it won't even open. Like it'll put up a notification saying you're not even allowed to look at this. But once I saw that email come from the Jags, I was like, "Oh, I wonder." And I just went to open one of mine, right? And now, because I think we're getting so close, it will actually open the app. Like if you're going to do the FanDuel or any one of them, name whichever one you want. It literally opens right up and I can place bets. Like I can look at the Michigan State Rutgers game today, Maryland, Ohio State. Like I can click on them. I just can't actually place a bet yet because we got to wait till the 15th. So, personal life rant, I'm excited. And that is the short end of that conversation. My balling, by the way, should be that. But it's not. It was interview Jimmy Butler had where he was talking about his love for coffee actually started in London.
Mhm.
And he said that he was just walking around London, going coffee shop to coffee shop, meeting people that he would have never met before in his life. And he wasn't getting bombarded with people trying to get his autographs because, and he quotes, football over there is king. They
Mhm.
had no idea who I was. They probably had some idea though, because I'm 6'7".
Well, yeah, that's the thing about NBA guys is just they're so damn tall that it's like you have to just automatically assume that, you
You
know,
stick out.
yeah, you just kind of stand out. But yeah, I mean, NBA is definitely not, I mean, obviously, yeah, Premier League is king in England. That's funny though that it like I just am surprised. It cracks me up that it's London of all places. Like I associate English people with drinking tea, not with drinking coffee. Like obviously I know English people
Yeah,
drink coffee, but I'm not, you know. When I think coffee, I think of like Latin America
sure.
and or Italy with espresso,
Ooh.
stuff like that. So that's kind of funny that he said London of all places. But I mean, yeah, he's like he said, he's all in on Big Face Coffee. I don't think he's selling stuff online yet. Like I feel like he should be. The bubble's been 2 years ago now, but
Yeah, Jimmy
um,
Butler's bubble coffee. I don't know. Yeah, Jimmy Butler. I don't think he's. I thought he said he was going to do it once he retired.
I mean, I know like they were trying to do the Big Face Coffee Co. for a little bit. I just don't know.
Let's see.
I don't know 100% what happened there, but I mean, yeah, he should 150% open a shop in Miami. Are you kidding me? With the Cuban population of Miami, he's gonna have bomb coffee down there. That's like that's the
Yep.
peak Jimmy Butler Miami retirement experience. Whenever he's done with me opening a coffee shop, and Jimmy Butler's one of the only NBA players that I would truly go and buy coffee from because I don't think like Jimmy Butler's not he's always been eccentric. Like he dude drives a minivan to games and stuff like that. Like I fully believe that he's really passionate about coffee.
So here you go. Um, Harry, what started jokingly as an overpriced coffee cup with Jimmy Butler and his Miami Heat star friends has launched into a coffee brand of its own business worth 465.9 billion. What? That's not right.
That's definitely not right.
This place is crazy. After season, Butler got serious. He trademarked Big Face.
Yeah, that I knew.
He announced October 1st that he joined the creator program of e-commerce Shopify to boost his Big Face coffee brand. So I guess he's in the works for it. There's no way it's worth that much though. That's not
No,
right.
no, there's no planet where it's worth 400 and I don't even think Starbucks is worth that much.
Launches. It says jokingly began has led the Miami Heat star to launch a coffee brand of his own. Oh, in a business that's worth 465.9.
Okay.
That would in. In is the word that I left out there.
Dude, I looked up Starbucks corporate value and it just talked to me about all their like mission statements and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, how much is the company
How
worth?
much are you worth? Yeah. I
I
wanna
don't
buy
know.
stock in Starbucks. Uh,
Share of Starbucks right now is $111.22.
actually, I guess less than I thought it would be.
Their total revenue last quarter was $7.5 billion.
Jeez, coffee is a industry of, I guess, goodness? I don't know.
That's
I've
a big change for me in 9 seasons. I didn't drink coffee when the Driving Dish podcast started. I only drank it out of necessity. I'm firmly
yeah,
addicted now. There's
yeah.
no way around it. All right, falling for me this week is Trevor Ariza. Trevor Ariza is going to be missing 8 weeks. He's got an ankle injury.
Mhm.
Obviously, Ariza was going to play big minutes for the Lakers this year, and he still will be. It's not like he's out for the season or anything like that, but he's 36 years old at this point. So, dealing with an ankle injury, those can be notoriously tough to come out or to come back from. It also just kind of means that Anthony Davis may have to play more five, which I think is gonna what the Lakers need to do if they're gonna be successful. So obviously, I'm not saying that this is a blessing in disguise, but if it pushes Anthony Davis to play the five, it's probably good for the Lakers long term.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, my following is also with the Lakers, so it kind of falls under the same umbrella. Is Westbrook in his Laker debut
Oh
did
yeah,
not
not good,
did not do great. He was
not
one
good.
for seven, 6 turnovers. He was a -8 in 17 minutes. Um, Not great, but also preseason, so like, who
Yeah,
cares?
there's going to be an adjustment period anyway. Like none of these guys have played together recently.
Well,
It's the
it got me wondering, like, his first starts for other teams, with the Heat or not the Heat, the Rockets and OKC. How did those starts go? And obviously, 08, 09, which would be his first start for OKC, it's kinda hard to put that, can
he's
we
a
really.
rookie.
Right, he's a rookie, but he did have 13 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. He shot 44% field goal percentage, so really not that bad. And again, this is game 1 of the regular season, so, things can change. And then his first game with Houston, he was, 7 for 17, 3 for 7 from 3, 16 total rebounds, and 24 points. 7 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Actually, really good. It's a pretty decent game. Did they win that
No,
one? They
it
lost that one to Milwaukee.
yeah, it's crazy. I remember because obviously Russ played with Kevin Love at UCLA,
Yeah.
and I remember all the Kevin Love hype, and I remember Russ being good, but Russ is I don't think it talks about how like Russ was like a mid-level prospect when he got drafted, like a high maybe like he went up closer to lottery and stuff like that. Like Russ was projected to be good, but like Russ way is better, went beyond his projections. Like he was a good college player.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, what a jump that he ended up making. Obviously,
Oh,
now being a Hall of Famer eventually.
and it
So,
and it speaks to his mentality. I mean, you see that video that was going viral of him the other day yelling at the trainer for not, like, hitting him hard enough with the bag when he was trying to drive the lane, like, that's just Russ, like, gotta be gotta be crazy about it, So,
yeah,
either way, I guess what we can do to wrap up the show is we've already given essentially our predictions of where we think teams are going to land, but if you were to actually say the standings at the end of next year, what do you think they will be? And just to remind everybody, the playoffs slash playing tournament last year, the standings at the end of the season, 76ers were in first, the Nets were second, Bucks, Knicks, Hawks, Heat, Celtics, Wizards, Pacers, and then Hornets. And the Bulls obviously missed out by 2 games.
okay, so I'm doing this a little bit on the fly right now.
I I can give you mine if you want me to do it while we're waiting. I'll give you my 9, and then leave out the losing teams.
Huh?
So the way I think it's gonna go, and I think this is gonna upset you a little bit, I think it's going to be Nets number 1,
Huh?
Heat number 2, Bucks are gonna be in 3rd, Hawks 4, Celtics 5, 76ers 6, Knicks 7, Bulls 8, Hornets 9. That's what I think it's gonna be, and then Pacers, Wizards, right? Pacers would be that 10th team that I think if I understand the play-in tournament right, would also be in the mix,
Uh-huh.
in my opinion. And then you have
Okay.
Wizards, Magic, Pistons, Cavs, Raptors in some order in not playoff standings.
Yeah. I don't think in terms of the tiers, I don't think anybody is off there. Um, I'm just kind of trying to order the last couple of teams real quick. I'm basically trying to decide who's going to be the worst between the Magic, the Pistons, and the Wizards.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. And honestly, that's what ended up happening for me is obviously like Nets, Heat, Bucks. That was easy for me to throw in there. I knew it was going to be some order of those 3 in the top 3, in my opinion. And then I knew Hawks, like we said at the beginning, I knew it was going to be Hawks, Celtics, Sixers, Knicks, somewhere in that mix in that middle. And then to me, it was like Bulls, Hornets, Pacers, in the next 3 in some order, and the Pacers
Mhm.
are already dealing with some injuries. I think the Bulls are the higher scale of those 3 because of the name power. Honestly, I could see the Bulls being in, like, you could convince me that the Bulls could be in 6th, Like, you could really tell me that they have a really great season, end up being in 6th place in the East, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. Maybe they're
Yeah,
higher.
I've got them. So I've got Brooklyn 1, Milwaukee 2, Miami 3, Sixers 4, Celtics 5, Hawks 6, Bulls 7, Knicks 8, Hornets 9, Raptors 10, Pacers 11, Wizards 12, Cavs 13, Pistons 14, and I have the Magic at 15.
Ooh.
I hate,
You
and
know,
it's
it's Doug?
crazy. It's interesting with the Magic because I think that they're going to have one of the more enjoyable seasons they've had in a while because I genuinely think they have a young core. Like the Magic could surprise people. I just think there are a couple like you're not going to have Markel Fultz most of the year. All their vets are gone outside of Terrence Ross, and like I think Jalen Suggs is going to be a good NBA player right away. I like Cole Anthony. They've got Chuma Okeke. Like they've got guys, but like the big other concern for me is Jonathan Isaac isn't playing yet. And Jonathan Isaac is supposed to be good, and he's the big wild card. If Jonathan Isaac, you could guarantee was going to be healthy, I'd bump the Magic up much higher. Like if
Okay.
he and Markel Fultz are playing the whole season, I'd put the Magic above the Cavs. I'd put the Magic above the Pistons. Like you could maybe even sell me them up closer to the Wizards and the Pacers. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs or anything like that, but there would be reasons for that team to be good. I think it's going to be an exciting bad, if that makes sense, which I kind of feel about the same with Detroit and with Cleveland. Like Detroit, obviously getting number one with Cade Cunningham, he's now the crown jewel, but they had a lot of other good young players as well, even last year.
Mhm.
And then with the Cavaliers, like I'm big on Garland and Sexton. Isaac Okoro has played good minutes for them. I think Evan Mobley has looked good in preseason so far. Like there's a lot to be excited about with him. I'm interested to see what Laurie Markkinen can do now that he's there. So I have reasons to be the Cavs are kind of my sleeper maybe good team. Now I also think and we'll see what happens with Colin Sexton as well. Like that's I think they could take a short-term hit if they decide to trade him, but I could see them moving up a little bit. I still think the Sixers with Embiid jump to 4 or 5. Like them and the Celtics could flip and flop, and I wouldn't really be surprised either way. But I do like the Sixers' depth more than I like the Celtics' depth still.
Yeah.
Celtics depth got a little better, but I think Maxi's going to take a step. I think Tyball's been still really good. Bringing Danny Green back, having Seth Curry, who was really solid for us last year. Like the Sixers, again, it also is just that I think a Ben deal gets made at some point, and that makes the roster better. Like there are scenarios where if the Sixers have a good enough Ben Simmons trade, they could be right up there with Miami and Milwaukee to me, and
I
then
agree.
be in that elite tier. I don't think anyone is better than Brooklyn. Like that's the one consistent. If you took nothing else from this podcast, I do. I think Brooklyn is the overwhelming favorite. Like I don't think to me health is the only thing that can stop Brooklyn. And um in terms of where like them falling off or other reasons besides that, like or I guess what I'm trying to say, forgive me, I lost my train of thought there for a
No
second.
worries.
Um the only thing other than injuries that could derail Brooklyn to me, like they're the most powerful favorite I think we've seen probably since the KD Warriors. Like I do think they are significantly better than everyone. Some of that is injury related for certain squads. Again, the Clippers, the Nuggets. But I still need to see it with the Lakers. I think Milwaukee realistically is the team that would push Brooklyn the most right now. I think that'd be a good series, but again, Brooklyn to me got better on paper where Milwaukee did get a little worse losing PJ Tucker.
Well, that's what I mean. You don't think that he could do it with Jimmy and Bam, and now you got PJ, and then you got Duncan Robinson. Like you've got some ballers down there.
They do. Um, the Goran Dragic situation is tough. I think they're going to miss him. We'll see
True.
if they can make up his impact. Kendrick Nunn is gone as well. I know he was a little inconsistent at the end of last year.
But I
Um,
wonder if Lowry just makes up for um
well, he kind of does.
yeah.
Like that's what I mean. Like he's probably better than Dragic at this point. I just to me, only losing PJ Tucker Miami's close to Milwaukee, but I also think that that's if we just don't account for any more Giannis improvement. Like, I just feel like I saw Giannis get the Infinity Stone last year. Like, he
That's fair.
figured it out. Like
Mm,
that team was getting their rear ends kicked by Brooklyn at one point. They gutted it out, found a way to win that series, closed the doors on both of those series. You know, coming back from that 2-0 hole, the way he put that last game, especially in the stranglehold, the way he did, like I just don't think there are many players in the league capable of doing that. And I love Jimmy Butler, but I don't think Jimmy Butler's capable of doing that.
no.
So that feels disrespectful. That game 5 of the finals was crazy. But Giannis, man, Giannis is special. Like it's just he's got everything now. And so that I guess is kind of just my bullishness on Milwaukee.
Okay.
I still do think they're better than everybody but Brooklyn, but we will see. And we'll do the Western Conference on next episode, so stay tuned for that. We were kind of MIA last week, so I want to give you guys a little bit of a longer episode here today. So we hope you had fun. We'll talk again the West next week. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Driving Dish NBA podcast. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Spotify, Player FM, anywhere you can find a podcast, no matter what you're doing, running random 5Ks, going to work,
Mhm.
chilling out by the pool, whatever you're doing, we're there for you.
Yes, and be sure to follow us, like we said, on YouTube. Just search Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube. We got a video version of the podcast. Sometimes we pull up tweets and stuff like that. It's like a slideshow. It's like a
Yeah.
presentation. But other times it's just us staring at the screen, and you can stare at us staring at the screen on YouTube at Drive and Dish NBA. You can search it there.